So we're halfway through the year. I've read 139 books and bought 131 books, which means I'm reading more books than I'm buying them. That's a win-win in my book and basically justifies my book buying. Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. We are officially halfway through the year. Can you believe that? I know I'm struggling a little bit to take it in, but this year already feels different for me. I feel like I've accomplished a lot of things that I wanted to. Not all of it, but a whole lot of it, while also feeding my inner child along the way. My life's not anywhere near perfect, but I am pretty content with where it is right now, and that feels amazing. About halfway into June, I made a video on my June TBR and what I'd read so far, and at the time I'd read 9 books, but I have since then added 25 more books to that. I am obviously really struggling with slowing down with my reading, but I'll go ahead and start the video by reviewing the other books that I read. Starting with Wotakoi Nikoyo and Muskashi. This is a manga series that's been making a lot of appearances in my videos. I mostly just read it for the good vibes, so it is a 5-star read for me. My first introduction to the series was through the manga when it was through the anime when it was first released about 3 years ago, I want to say. I've watched it multiple times, but I never really read the manga. I, however, bought the box set of the manga earlier this month, and that made me really happy. I immediately just tore through the entire series. It's about a girl named Narumi who is a closet fujoshi, and she basically usually just hides that part of herself from friends and co-workers and all her boyfriends. In fact, at the beginning of the story, she just broke up with her boyfriend and was super embarrassed about the fact that he found out her secret, so she switched companies. But on her first day of work, she runs into a childhood friend, Hirotaka, who knows all of those things about her. And their eyes kind of clash. She's like, "Oh, I know you." And she's like, "You better keep your mouth shut. Do not reveal my secret." But he actually blurts it out. Luckily for her, the other 2 people who were there, Kabakura and Hana, were also, I guess, otakus in their own way. So, although the story is about Narumi and Hirotaka's romantic relationship and its development, I also like the way it dives into the other characters like Hana and Kabakura and Hirotaka's brother Naoya, and then the gamer girl that he met, Ko, which is why I think this is more like a feel-good story for me. I loved definitely learning about all of those couples, but more than that, the feel-good vibe of the story from all of them kind of creating this community with each other where they all enjoyed the same thing. They went shopping for manga together, they played games together, they fangirled together. It was just really amazing to watch, and that's what really drew me to the series. And the anime adaptation, honestly, really just was really well done. It was so well done. I actually recommend people watching that before they read the manga, because it puts a lot of things in context that might be hard to do if you're just reading the manga by itself. So yeah, this is a 5-star read for me. The very next book I read was The Silent Patient by Alex Michailidis. This is a psychological thriller, and Actually, I ended up borrowing the audiobook from my local library, so I kind of did a hybrid between reading and listening to it. I haven't read a psychological thriller in a very long time, so I'm not sure how I feel about this one. And I went to Goodreads to kind of just get people's opinion of it. And something that I noticed was people were trying to judge the book as a murder mystery, which I personally think is a mistake. If you approach the book from the point of view of, oh, who did it, I don't think you're going to enjoy this story. It is categorized as a psychological thriller for a reason. What you're trying to understand is why what happened was done, and yeah, just figure that out. So it's a story about a woman named Alicia Berenson, and they say that she killed her husband by shooting him in the face, I believe 5 times, and then she just never spoke about it. At the beginning of the story, they go into the night that she killed her husband, and she has been quiet for about 6 years. And the very next chapter, they just go into her being in this psychological facility called The Grove, and there is a psychotherapist that's basically trying to uncover the mystery of what happened and the events leading to her killing her husband. So if you approach the story from that point of view, I think you probably enjoy it much better. As a whole, I think the book had really good writing. It was actually very easy to follow. And there's an interview at the end of the audiobook where someone is interviewing the writer, Alex Michaelidis. I believe he's also a movie script writer, which is very understandable. Like, the writing in the book flows really well, and I enjoyed that. The story, on the other hand, I'm not sure how I feel about it, so I don't have a rating for it just yet, unfortunately. But yeah, I read that. The very next book I read was Conversations on Love. This is a book that was recommended by a friend. It was written by a journalist called Natasha Lawn, who created a popular newsletter with the same name, Conversations on Love. The book is basically a compilation of some of the contents of the newsletter, and through the conversations that she had with multiple people in that newsletter, she's basically trying to answer 3 key questions in the book. How do we find love? How do we sustain it? And how do we survive when we lose it? I really like the fact that that very last question says when we lose it, not if, because losing love is unavoidable. Loss is a part of life, and a lot of people have to come to that realization and also figure out if love is stronger than the fear of uncertainty and change that comes with being in love. My very favorite part of the book was the varying perspectives on love that you get from her interviewing multiple people. And while there are similar ways love can be shown, it's also immediately obvious that it means very different things to different people. But it also manifests itself in various ways as well, like how romantic love is not the penultimate form of love, and there are other forms of love that play just as significant of a role in every one of our lives, like love with friends, love with family, love with yourself, and how it ties into your understanding of yourself. There's a quote by Bell Hooks that the book mentions from her book All About Love, and it goes, "Learning faulty definitions of love when we are quite young makes it difficult to be loving as we grow older." That line really resonated with me personally because I held on to a very idealistic view of love for quite a while, probably from reading a lot of romance when I was growing up, where this idea of love conquering all is sold to you. It's described as this exciting, heart-fluttering butterflies in your chest feeling that just makes everything better. And while sometimes that is absolutely true, I think it's also important to know that love exists in the calm moments, and it is a choice that you have to make daily. It requires effort, and it's not some grandiose plan for someone to save you from yourself. This is a 5-star read for me, as is mostly the case with nonfiction. I think they accomplish what you spend a lot of time researching and trying to understand in one book. So if I learned from it, it's automatically a 5-star book. Also, you will notice that I actually annotated this book. I haven't annotated a book in a very long time, and since I started buying books again, I've tried as much as possible to keep them pristine without having to do this. But this book had so many good things and points and definitions from people that I just couldn't help but annotate it, because I definitely want to be able to go back to those things in the future. So definitely pick this one up. I think it's an amazing book that everyone should read. The next book I read is the manga series Living no Matsunaga-san. I was planning to read Paradise Kiss, but it was replaced by this series by Iwashita Keiko. This is a shoujo romance manga that's kind of new to me. I found out about it because I'm currently reading a new ongoing work of the mangaka. I think the name of that series is Musei Kurai no Ai o Ageru, and there's only like 2 volumes of it out right now. I really liked the art style in that story, and the story is a really refreshing college romance. So when I found out the mangaka also had a completed series that I could read, I added it to my TBR. But I happened to find a used copy of the very first volume on Better World Books, which is a used website that I sometimes buy books from. So I went ahead and bought it. It literally came in like 2 days ago, and I just read it. But I really enjoyed it, so I read the rest of the series online. About 4 volumes in, I was like, this is like the standard shoujo story. I'll just read it online and I don't have to bother with collecting it. I'll just unhaul this, probably. But I finished reading it last night and I've since changed my mind. The story is about a girl called Miko who moves into her uncle's boarding house because her parents have to leave to take care of her ailing grandmother. So the option of her moving in with her uncle was actually offered to her, but her uncle actually travels a lot for work, and she ends up moving to a boarding house that her uncle owns, where she's basically living with other boarders in that house that her uncle trusts. And there she meets all the residents in the house, but because this is a romance story, she actually meets a boarder at the house called Matsunaga-san, the living room Matsunaga-san, and they fall in love with each other. So automatically, I think one thing to address in this is the age gap. When they start dating, Miko is like 17/18 and Matsunaga is 10 years older than her. I really struggled with that up till the very end of the story, because with age gap stories like this, it's there's a fine line between the story being kind of cute and it's crossing over to that creepy / pedophilic territory. And although the mangaka tried to make the story of them falling in love as cute as possible, it still doesn't sit right with me, although I really liked their kind of dynamic with each other. But the romantic storyline is actually not why I enjoyed this story so much. It's the subplot and the relationship that all the boarders of the house kind of build with each other. It was so heartwarming to read about the way they all just developed as characters. Even Matsunaga himself, like, he has obviously come a very long way. At the beginning of the story, he's like this really kind person that is kind of the glue that brings the house or all the people living in the house together. But as you read the story, you also find out that he also went through hard times, and he finds the people that live in the boarding house to be some kind of saviors for him and how he was struggling in life. You have a boarder in the house called Asako who got married in her early 20s and got divorced as well because her husband cheated on her. So she's struggling to fall in love. You have another boarder called Akane, who is like pretty reclusive. And I just really liked how Miko was able to look up to the both of them kind of as older sisters and just have that relationship with them, where she had grown women to be friends with and look up with and discuss all kinds of random things that girls discuss with each other. And all the other boarders, and honestly, I don't know how to explain it. Like, there was just so much individual development for all of the characters, and I loved it so much. There's a part in the story where Miko talks about how she was really, really lonely when she moved into the boarding house, but that was the very last time she felt lonely, because they made it kind of their responsibility to never make her feel lonely and just make her feel safe. And she actually did feel all of those things just from living with them. More than the romantic plot of the story, I think that part of the series actually made me love it more. So I will rate this 4 stars for that reason. I think if the story didn't have that part, and with the discomfort I had with the age gap in the romantic plot, I probably would have rated it like a 3. Yeah, but this is actually a really good series. It only has 11 volumes. I'm just going to go ahead and buy all of it. I really enjoyed it. There was a part of me that was actually wishing I had a roommate while I was reading it. It was just while I was reading it. I've since gotten over that idea. It's actually not going to happen, but yeah, I read that. It's a 4-star read for me. The very last book I read was the first volume of Moonlit, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. This is a Danmei novel, and I watched the donghua for this one a while ago, so I'm already pretty familiar with the story, but I recently bought the last and final volume of the English published series, so I thought I might as well just give it a read. I know it probably covers a lot more of the series itself or the online novel than was covered in the donghua, so I wanted to read it. I was meant to read the first 2 volumes, but I was only able to read this very first one. I loved the donghua of this so much. I love stories with like a fantasy-esque theme, and it had a lot of that, like that wuxia / jianxia genre that you have in Chinese literature. I love them so much. I think even in like Chinese dramas, I love watching genres like that. So like 10 Miles of Peach Blossoms, that's one of my favorite historical Chinese drama to today, or maybe fantasy historical Chinese dramas to today for that reason. So I went into the storyline for, I guess the Dongua. I watched it because of that, but you also have like very, very beautiful character designs, and then just throw in that damn dynamic, and that was all it took for me to get hooked. So I watched this, but I think I was mostly existing on just good vibes and just there to like stare at the beautiful characters when I watched it, because although I can remember it, there's a whole lot of it that I can't remember either. I mean, just take a look at the beautiful characters in this series. So, Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation is a story by Mo Shen-Tong-Shu. She is known as MXTX. It is about the character Wei Wuxian, who was once one of the most outstanding men of his generation, a talented and clever young cultivator who harnessed martial arts, knowledge, and spirituality into powerful abilities. So basically, he was a genius, and due to the horrors of war, he has to fall back on another form of cultivation called demonic cultivation, for some reason that you obviously figure out throughout the entire series. But in him doing that, his skills that were celebrated and the respect that people used to view him with was basically turned to fear, because demonic cultivation is kind of a fearful thing to do. And he basically gets killed up, but at the beginning of the story, he's summoned and awakened in the body of a character called Mo Xuanyu. And Mo Xuanyu summons Wei Wuxian into his body because he needs him to exact revenge on a couple of people that he thinks have wronged him. That's just a part of the story. He exacts that revenge on them, but he also has to deal with uncovering the mystery of the events that led to his death. So he's not completely free of his first life. He also meets people from his first life, like one of the cultivators that he was acquainted with, Wan Wangji, who is his, I guess, love interest, since this is a Danmei story. Lan Wangji is my favorite character in all of MDZS. I love his character design so much, and I immediately fell in love with him in the Dongua. Like, just from the first episode, like that stoic, cool, calm, and collected personality with his flowing white robes and the forehead ribbon characteristic of the Lan clan. He's just a picture of grace and beauty, and throw in that cushion that he plays, that instrument, oof. Everything about him. I just love Lan Wangji so much. He's my favorite character. But yeah, I actually thought this was a very good introduction to the series, this being the first book. I would give this 4 stars. That might be partly because I've watched the Dongua. I thought the story actually flowed pretty well, and like I said, this is a very good introduction to the series. You get a little bit of world building, introduction to the major clans in the story, and all of the major characters that play a part in the entire story. Now, I'm not sure how much of the entire web novel the Dongua actually covers. I know I've read some reviews about how there's more to it, and due to Chinese censorship, there's probably some more explicit parts of the story that aren't shown. I actually don't know how explicit this is. So although I'm familiar with the story, I'm sure there are parts of it that will still be new to me, and I'm excited for that. But yeah, I read the first volume and I will rate it 4 stars. I'm really excited to finish all of them. After this one, I have other MXTX novels to read. I think I'm going to go to Scum Villain's Self-Saving System next. I have the first 3 volumes of that. I think the fourth volume is the very last one. It's already been published. I can go ahead and buy that. And then I will finally move to everyone's favorite, Heaven Official's Blessing. But that was the last book I read this month that I'll be reviewing. There were other books that I read this month that I won't be reviewing. One of them was the 2 books of Dangerous Convenience Store. This is a BL manhwa that I started reading years ago. I can't remember when exactly now, but I never finished it because it wasn't completed at the time, but it's now completed. So I went ahead to reread the portion of it that I'd read before, and I finished the story as well. I really enjoyed that as well. I also reviewed volumes 3 of and 4 of a shoujo manga series that I'm collecting, Urashi no Yoi no Tsuki. I have volumes 3 and 4. I believe 4 is the last English published manga right now, but I went ahead to continue the series online, so I read volumes 5 and 6 of that. And the very last manga that I read was one that was available via Kindle Unlimited. They had a couple volumes of the manga available on it, but I read the first volume and automatically decided, like, no, I'm not reading this. I believe the name was Can I Kiss You Every Day. I was not feeling it at all, so that's a no for me. But those were all the books that I read. I am now going to go over the books that I bought after changing my setting in this video a little bit. Stay tuned for that. So these are all of the books that I bought this month. I've kind of sorted them into categories that make sense for me to go through the way they're arranged instead of sorting them by height. The very first category are series that are ongoing and that I'm actively collecting. I have volumes 3 and 4 of Urashi no Yoi no Tsuki. I bought volumes 3 and 4 this month. And the very next series I'm collecting in that first category is My Happy Marriage. I have volume 3 of that right here. And the next manga series I have here is one that I just recently started collecting. Snow White with the Red Hair, Akagami no Shiraiki Hime. I found volumes 8 through 11 of this at my local used bookstore, and I bought them for about $5 each, so I couldn't let that just go. I had to buy it. I don't know if I'm actually going to end up collecting the entire series, but this is a good place to start if I do decide to collect it. They're also in very, very good condition, so I love that, even though I bought them used. And then I have volume 4 of TGCF. That is the very last volume of the series I have. This is a not safe for work cover. I plan to buy volumes 5 and 6 of the series before volume 7 is released. And if you were not aware, the cover for volume 7 was reviewed about a week ago, so definitely go check that out. It's absolutely beautiful. The next category I have here are for completed series that I am planning to collect. The very first one is Dawn of the Akana. Wait, what's the Japanese name? Reime no Akana. I bought volumes 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 on Better World Books. They were all between like $6 to $7 used again. I really love this series, and I have a video on it going up in about, I want to say 3 days. Be on the lookout for that. If you're not familiar with the series, I'm basically just recommending it. That's Dawn of the Akana. And then I have Living no Matsunaga-san that I already kind of reviewed in the video. I have just volume 1 of that. I'm probably going to unhaul it in favor of buying all 11 volumes as a set. I've seen a bunch of people selling all 11 volumes together as a set for a really, really good price. And I don't want to miss out on that just because I want to buy the remaining 10 volumes separately. I can always like sell this, or maybe just donate it to my local library or sell it to my used bookstore, and then buy all 11 volumes as a set instead. The next series I have here is Kimetsu no Yaiba, Demon Slayer. Same thing here. They have a really good deal on the box set at Target for like $110 for, I think it's like 27 volumes in Demon Slayer. So I'm probably going to unhaul these 3 volumes. I really wasn't thinking of that when I bought all 3. I bought it at my local used bookstore, again for about $5 each, and they were in really good condition. And all I was thinking was, oh, I would like to collect this series. I might as well just go ahead and buy them now. The next two here are also a series that I bought from my local used bookstore. So Demon Slayer, Full Metal Alchemist, and Attack on Titan. I bought all of these used from my local used bookstore. They are in really, really good condition. I have volumes 1 through 6 of Full Metal Alchemist here. There are the 3-in-1 volume sets, so they're a bit bulky. This one is $9, as you can see, but because since you get 3 volumes in the one book, I think that's a really good price. And volumes 4, 5, and 6. Then for Attack on Titan, I have volumes 1, 3, and 4. I don't know if there is a boxed set for Attack on Titan, but I think there's probably going to be people selling the complete sets together. I already bought volume 2 as a rogue buy at a thrift store like years ago. So I just picked these 3 volumes from my local used bookstore, again for like $5 each. That is a lot actually. They were $3.99 each. That is amazing. Next one here is the perfect edition of Soul Eater. I watched Soul Eater, or a little part of it, like years ago. I can barely remember what it's about now, but I bought this because it's a hardcover and it's the perfect edition. I wanted to use it as an opportunity to maybe get acquainted with the story again. After buying it, I later realized that the manga has been on hiatus for a while and we don't really know what the mangaka is planning to do with it, so I'm probably going to unhaul this one as well. But I bought it. And I forgot that this actually marks the introduction of a new category in everything I have here. These are books that are rogue finds or that I'm not planning to collect. I'm not planning to collect Soul Eater, so I'm probably going to unhaul that. This is Mangas of the Library. I also bought this in my local used bookstore. It's a new series to me. I bought it because the cover was beautiful and I'm actually a little bit interested in what the story is about. So I have 1 volume of that. I'm not planning to collect it. I just want to read it. I have volume 2 of the Other Worlds books, Depend on the Bean Counter. I read volumes 1 and 2 of this earlier in June and I actually really liked it. It has a lot of good reviews on Amazon, so I was really curious about the story. I'm enjoying it so far. However, this is not a priority for me to collect as a series, as beautiful as it is. But no, I will not be collecting that for now. I might change my mind, but it's not a priority right now. So that ends that category. The next category are like completed box sets or just individual books that I bought. I have Wotakoi. As you can see, it's already in the box. I'm not going to try to bring that out. I'm just going to leave it in there. But I have volumes 1 through 11 that have kind of been combined into 6 books for the published English version. So I have the complete box set of that. And next book I have there is Conversations on Love by Natasha Wan, another book that I reviewed during the video. This is the hardcover copy. I thought it was prettier than the paperback, so probably not a good reason to buy a book, but what do I know? Next is, I also bought this from my local used bookstore, a box set of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. This was one of my favorite series growing up. I have to do a reread of it, and I really like this box set. It's actually very pretty. I love it so much. It's $13. Great price, I think. Next book is this book called So You Think You're a Bookworm, also from my local used bookstore. I found out about it from my local used bookstore's social media page. It's kind of a book that has a compilation of different profiles of readers. There's one for a crier, the adulterer, the abuser, like you abuse the books that you read. But yeah, it's an interesting book. Go on my Instagram to see where I actually flip open a couple pages on the book to see what some profiles are on there. Or maybe not. You can just look it up online. The next book here is a poetry book by L.E. Bowman. She's a poet that I started following on Instagram earlier in the year, and I really like what she posts about. So I bought one of her poetry books, and it's a really beautiful book. At the back of the book, you can already see a poem right here. I can't tell you when I found myself, it was a painful transformation, the shedding of skin that I nurtured tirelessly until something completely new emerged. That's beautiful. I can't wait to dive into that one. Last book here is a non-fiction book that I've always wanted to read, Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. I've had this on my TBR for a while. I had the opportunity to listen to the audiobook years ago when I had a Scribe membership, but I had to cancel it soon after and I just kind of forgot about it. But now that I have my hands on it, I'm definitely going to try to read it sometime this year because my sleep is absolute shit, and I hope by reading the book and learning about whatever it is he has written in here, I'm able to improve my sleep schedule and just prioritize it because sleep is important. So that wraps up all the books that I bought this year, and I'm going to do a cumulative count. No, all the books I've bought this month. I'm going to do a cumulative count of the books I've bought so far in the year, and the same thing for the books I've read. Whatever day you find yourself watching this, make it a great one. See you in my next video. Bye.